what is it that you could share? Because I'm definitely putting this down as a homeschool book for homeschooling, because everyone needs to know this story, because it's real and it's raw. So if you could share with me what I can say, what you recommend, or what your point of view is, that would be great, please.
What?
I think everyone should answer that too.
So, man,
Sure.
I think when the moment that you there's an expression that says you can see the truth when you're blind and you can hear the truth when you're deaf. So if you put all the differences aside and look at the person as who the person is, then you will see how similar we are. And then you will discover our similarities, not our differences. And that's what the world is about. It's about us being the same. There's no difference, except the color. Who cares? Go inside. What you find inside you is pure white. And there's no difference between the white that's inside me and anybody else who's sitting here. All of us we are the same.
This is the thing to take away from me, was that I think everybody that was old enough obviously remembers where they were at and the way they felt on 9/11. You know, and there are plenty of other stories. Even at this time, there are other operations happening. This one just happens to be written really, really well by Tug, and it really shows the story. But these are 12 guys that made what ended up, what could have been. They chose to make what could have been the ultimate sacrifice because of what they believed in, what they believed America stood for, and what they left their families behind. Some guys left their families behind, and they knew that there was a chance that some, if not all of them, wouldn't come back. And this is about a love for one another and a love for the ideal of what America is, and they believed that they were making a difference so that nothing like 9/11 would happen again.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echo that. I think, for me, what stands out most is the bravery of these guys. We, you know, like you said, a lot of us in this room remember where we were and what we were thinking on 9/11, and just the fact that these guys were the first, essentially the first guys in, didn't really know how to do the job they were supposed to do, but they learned on the fly and they did it, without complaining, and I'm sure they complained a little bit, but they did it. They did it through bravery and patriotism and the right way, and that was really neat to portray.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many elements to this story, but I think something that we've seen people respond to when we've screened the film is the sacrifice. There's a line in the movie I love so much where it says, Michael Shannon says, "How do you love your family and leave them to go to war?" And I think that's such a poetic, beautiful line, because people do this every day, and they make sacrifices for their country, for their the camaraderie, the love. It's their duty, and I think we really tried to capture the spirit of the military, all branches of the military, and soldiers in general. By showing some of the layers and complexities of the home life and their families, and then of course seeing the scope of what these guys went to go do, because they felt a sense of duty and to fight for their country.
Something that I feel like a big thing that I took away from this experience, and this was definitely with the real guys themselves, talking about how important it was for them, for their own survival first, when they first got there, to convince the local people they were fighting with that they weren't there to occupy the country. They were there to chase the same enemy. And as Naveed said, the local people that we had working with us from Afghanistan who were living in Albuquerque, a number of them came up and said, "Thank you for telling this story."
What makes this movie so fascinating, what they've done so brilliantly, is really that these guys, the Special Forces soldiers, the diplomat on the ground. And so when you think about this movie and go home, you want to think about World War II, actually, and people drop behind enemy lines to foment resistance. So therefore, the relationship that Chris has with Naveed in the film is really a key central driving emotional point. And so the movie is both filled with action, as you saw, and also really tries to drive home the fact that this is America working at its best to create social change and using combat if necessary, but also using the power of the mind, as Travate said. They're almost like Jedi Knights here, trying to do a mind meld with the culture that they're engaging with and being very respectful of it. So it's a very interesting, complex movie in that way.
A common enemy, and the brotherhood they formed with the local Afghan people, but also amongst the soldiers, was something that kept coming up in amongst all of the guys I spoke to in this experience, and the relationships they still keep to this day with one another is as strong as any family bond I've ever had, and that was something that was always, again, inspiring and pretty evident with their approach and to why they did things.
Did any of you all research this with Rob Riggle, since he was a former Marine? I mean, he was maybe a go-to guy for some of these things, how to hold the weapons, or?
We had not that Rob wouldn't be the perfect guy to go to. We had some of the real guys that this book was based on. We had military advisors there. One of the actual actors, Kenny Sheard, is a former Navy SEAL. So we had a lot of people with a lot of experience that we leaned on. By the end of it, everyone was, before we made a move or held a gun, we'd kind of turn to Kenny and he would go, you don't look right. So we had people there to make sure we didn't screw it up.